those of you who were around 1981 to 1991, you know that we lost that decade. We call it the lost decade. We didn't do much. Everyone was shocked and surprised. Those who tried to do something did it very wrongly. And unfortunately, the effects of that wrongly doing things has continued. Then we moved into another phase, 1991 to 2000, which we call the lukewarm response. There was something being done, but not so much. But at least we are getting organized. Uganda AIDS Commission is born in 1992. Gideon Byamugisha, who is speaking to you, discovers he's HIV positive and declares in 20 minutes that I'm positive. And I shock the world. I divide the church and the faith community. And up to now, that division is still there. I'm sure there will be people who will be happy that someone invited me, but others will be like, Kakatoyo, Mwale, Siwacho. Because as Gloria and Enid has said, there is a group of people that can't be respected. That the perceptions color who they are and what they stand for, and the rest of, even when they speak, well, you can't take in because judgment has already been passed. But I want to thank God that I have been part of that history. I'm telling you, 1991 we do something, 2000 I'm dying of AIDS. I lose 20 kilos from 78 to 58. I nearly die, and then my bishop stands in the gap and says, "You, government, you can't allow this boy to die." And I had lost my wife in 1991. She had left me a 14 months baby, and here I was dying. But love, compassion stood in the way. And women, the Ugandan women, said, we are going to fight for Gideon. So they mobilized money. Dr. Madra, Catherine Sozi, Kathy Watson, others. They said, we are going to look after Gideon. And they mobilized money, they put me on treatment. And here I am to live to speak the story. So those of you who have seen me wear this cassock is a special one. I'm the only one who wears it in Uganda. It is an Anglican cassock, but it is in the colors of Christian Women Fellowship. I dedicate this to the women in my life who saved my life and have stood with me, including the woman who had lost her husband to HIV. But when I said I am looking for someone who is HIV positive and widowed like me, because I didn't want to spread the virus, people were looking at my face and say, you don't look like her. You are born again, you are a religious leader, and you are handsome, and you are educated, and you are saying you are positive. So there are misconceptions that were putting me under pressure to make two mistakes, commit adultery and infect. And so when I knelt on my prayers and said, God, what do I do? That awkward solution came in. You know, awkward problems are solved by awkward challenge, awkward solutions. So I said I must look for someone who is like me, so that when a condom breaks, I am not accused of adding another statistic. You know, that is where I'm coming from. So this lady, when I approached, because I tried, you know, I couldn't go saying, are you positive, I marry you? You know, it was hard. I even climbed the bus and went to Nairobi because someone called Dorothy Nyango had said, I'm positive, I'm a founder of Tap Work. Tap Work is the women uh, living with AIDS in Kenya. So I went, and fortunately, I missed her after 2 weeks. I couldn't see her. Why am I saying fortunately? Because I would have missed Pamela. Pamela is a great girl. You know, she widowed at 24, very young age, didn't have children. I had the patients whom I have told you, whom the mother left with 14 months. And of course, when she accepted, of course, there was this whole issue of religious leaders saying, we can't wed you. Number one is we can't allow people to spread the virus within marriage. Number two, we hear people with HIV die so early. So why are you wasting our time? One of the reverends said, I don't want to be party to a wedding that won't be there next year. But fortunately, you know, it's good to have Bachiga in your country, because there are those. He's a guy who Bokoto, St. Andrews, and he said, Nyonda kugit. Nyonda kugit. So that was, he's now a retired bishop of Kigezi, but by then he was a vicar at St. Andrews. And on 28th July 1995, we wedded. So you can see we have celebrated our silver jubilee already. And but immediately we agreed we are going to have to be married. There are two questions that came in. Number one, so what happens to our history? It's good to discuss with your spouse, really, either already in a marriage or intending. Once you discuss these hard issues, the going gets easier. We are on a health awareness, so I hope that what I'm sharing could add value to. So you have lost a husband, I lost a wife. So what about the photographs? Can I hang my photograph in the room? What about the albums? Can I show people? Because there are people who may be annoyed to say, why are you talking about dead people when I'm here? You know, why are you celebrating your dead wife when I am alive? So we had to discuss that and agreed we will respect and honor each other and support each other. Oh, thank you very much. The second one was, you are positive, I am positive, so how do we have our sex life? Without reinfecting each other and without infecting our children who are going to be born. And that was a very honest discussion. And so we agreed we are going to have protected sex. And we're going to have protected sex until the time God works a miracle. Because I couldn't say we are not going to have children. That was my first choice. I really didn't want, I was looking for a woman who already have children so that we don't go into that. But I failed on that. The nearest I got, actually I nearly got one, but she said, Zenjagara byaleja leja. That commitment bit, no. So I ran away very fast. So I got this one, and who didn't have children, so you couldn't say we are not going to have children. So I had to go to plan B. Let's postpone having children until God works out a miracle that can allow people. Whoo, it's good to have people of faith in the room, isn't it? I was saying it just to win over this girl, you know, but God heard my prayer. Because I said, until God works out a what? A miracle. And we are able to produce children. It was faith. It was speaking about things that I didn't know were going to come to pass. And so we adopted safe sex. It should be there. It should have been there in the pharmacies when I'm buying condoms. Then the girl looks at you and says, Musumba, did you say condoms or Colgate? They want to intimidate you, you know, so that you shy away. I have, you know, someone said experience is the best teacher. And there is truth that remains hidden, that until you experience it. So you people who are in the business of adjudicating for justice and equity, arbitrating, you know, I pray for you many times because I say, I hope God reveals this, because there is something that you can't see by reading, you can't discover by hearing. You have to experience it to know how it feels. So, you know, a person looks, Inid was talking about perceptions. Someone looks at you, looks at your collar, and immediately knows you are going to commit adultery, you are going to fornicate, and then you say, oh my God, sin has gone too far. Even the guys in a collar now can ask for condoms in broad daylight. You know, so I go back, I switch off the engine because I thought it was exhaustion. So you switch off the engine from idling, then you begin teaching a lesson in the pharmacy. I'm not going to commit adultery. Me and my wife are positive. We have to use these things. We budget for these things the way we budget for sugar and salt. And the girl says, I'm sorry. So she protects me by putting in a black polythene bag, and you know, and then she says, she gives you like this. I'm not part. So, but that discipline taught me two things. Number one, that the way we talk about AIDS prevention is wrong. And I'm glad that Uganda AIDS Commission has listened to the experiences of people living with HIV, the children born with HIV, and the women who make up a big percentage. And now they have allowed the faith sector to use prevention messages that are less stigmatizing. But originally we had messages like abstain, if you can't, be faithful, and if you can't abstain and you can't be faithful, then use condoms. So when Gideon is asking, can I have 3 condoms? Someone has already judged. He can't abstain and he can't be faithful. Poor person, morally. And so I have discovered to be that's a wrong teaching. Actually, I don't know your experience, but my experience is that condom use is the most difficult, because abstinence is a personal decision. Faithfulness is a personal decision. Condom use, you have to negotiate. You have to go and buy. You must have the money. You must know how to use. But the most difficult part of my story is, okay, you have bought, you have used it, so where do you put them? That's the biggest bit. If you are not dedicated fighter of a champion or to fight AIDS, you give up quickly. If they give you statistics of how many people use condoms correctly and consistently, you'll be shocked. There are very few. Thank God I am among those people who have shown that condoms correctly used work against HIV, but also against unintended, unprayed for pregnancies. Because we were able to postpone having children for 7 years, from 1995, when we wedded, to 2002, when Professor Miro and the team were saying we have the science. And we had read the science, went to Dr. Businji, our gynecologist, asked him, he said, yes, it's possible. We had our first baby, and we called her Love. True love is kind, true love is considerate, true love is patient, you know. And of course, my wife was so excited to have a baby, because the stigma she had endured. She's a businesswoman in Shauri Yako. So when they would start a conversation on children, and she wants to contribute, the women would say, "Atwale now, abana bamanyi coach." So she would come back crying, and then I think she was nearly tempting me to throw away the condoms so that we can have a baby. But I said, Katugume, God will work a miracle. One time, Katugume. I remember one time I went from Germany, and I came in 2 weeks. I looked for condoms. I couldn't get. She woke up, joined the search. There were no condoms. We sat down and prayed. Tugamba, ebyo bitusaze. Ebyo bitusaze. I'm talking about what I have written. My 7th book is called Labors of Love. So you could look for it and see it. It summarizes what I'm talking about. That these things we are talking about, it is when we talk about fighting AIDS, you must be committed. Number one, you must be conscious that there is a problem and it needs my joining. That's consciousness about vulnerability, about risk. So that's the first part of health awareness, consciousness. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 17, Nehemiah asks people, do you see the trouble we are in? So if you have not yet seen the trouble, how can you join the fight? Still to timekeeper. You can't. You must, first of all, be aware there is a problem. Like now, 61% of all women in Africa who are HIV positive have never had sex with a person not their husband. 61, not 6.1. That's a big problem. So when I was in Sierra Leone, we were busy talking about ABC, the women put me on the side and said, I said, do you think the person who designed this message was a woman? I said, what do you? I said, for us, it doesn't work for us. We want to abstain. Men don't respect our abstinence decisions. We are raped. We are forced in sex. We are raped even in marriage. Yet you are talking about abstinence as if it is a choice. When we are faithful, we are still infected on the marital bed. Faithfully infected. When we want to use condoms, the men don't want. They even beat us. Who told you about those things? Is the one? Is the best teacher. Some knowledge remains hidden until you have experienced it. So the women told me that actually if we are to fight AIDS and win, we have to teach it differently. And then the young people who are virgins but positive, the glorias of this world, you are 11, you are being told you are positive. And the biggest trouble the glorias go through when they are giving their testimony, oh, I'm HIV positive, the people are not even hearing the testimony. They are whispering, kabitandikanga kato. Kabitandikanga kato. But these are virgins.